What's up, reptile enthusiasts? It's Dan, the Tortoise Man, with CBReptile.com, your home for captive bred reptiles as well as reptile accessories. And today we have a very special guest with us. This is one of our lily white crested geckos. Crested geckos are phenomenal reptiles for beginner level reptile owners. And this lily white is one of the most beautiful of all of them. So this is one of my personal favorite morphs and something that we're going to be using today to show you guys a little bit how we're going to set up a terrarium for one of our New Caledonian geckos, like the crested gecko. Alright guys, so why don't we start off this build out by talking a little bit about the equipment that we have in front of us. The first step is going to be setting up the backdrop as well as getting the substrate ready. The substrate is going to be the flooring part of your setup, and then the wall is also going to be using a little bit of that flooring just to have a little bit more of aesthetic to fill in some gaps, and we'll go a little bit more into that in just a second. But traditionally, right here in front of us, for a size about here, one of our juvenile crested geckos, for a little bit of their lifetime, they're going to be needing to feel secure a terrarium of about 12 by 12 by 18, which happens to be the swinging door terrarium that we have in front of us today. So right here, as you can see, we can actually swing this door wide open, and that's going to allow us to get inside of the terrarium and be able to interact with our gecko, be able to give them their food and water through this, and not going to require us to be taking off the actual hood lamp and the fixtures that we have on top for them. So this is going to be something that's going to be absolutely perfect for interacting with them, and it's actually going to help us out with the build out too. So swinging doors are going to be great for getting access to the innards of your setup, particularly when the tank that we're using is going to be a taller tank than a wider tank. So there's sometimes a 20-gallon long. This is going to be a 12 by 12 by 18. As mentioned before, that 18 inches is going to give them a little bit more height, a little bit more room to climb around. These guys are arboreal, so they love to climb around, they love to get into trees and things like that, so we're going to be using the setup to their advantage to ensure that they have ample room to climb, as well as places where they can get into little nooks and crannies to feel a little bit more protected. Alright guys, so to continue along with a little bit of the fixings that are going to go inside of this 12 by 12 by 18, let's talk about the substrate first. So over here we have some of the substrate. This over here is going to be some eco earth, which we're going to get into a little bit later, why we have it inside of this easy to grab, kind of bin of dust. So this is going to be unhydrated eco earth over here. Eco earth comes in a big old block, and the block looks like this. This is going to be your block of eco earth, and that's going to contain a ton of eco earth. So probably one block is going to be enough for this build out. So this is what we have over here, just a little broken up. The first step of having your eco earth is to soak it in some water, but we're not going to necessarily need a hydrated eco earth on our hands. We're going to need more of a dry eco earth. We're also going to be talking about the substrate mixture. So this eco earth for now is going to remain eco earth. A little bit later in the video, we're going to be mixing it up with two of its best friends. Right here we have some of our tree bark, and tree bark is going to be great for adding a little bit of texture to the eco earth. The eco earth is very much so very coarse. It's very, very thin and powdery, kind of like a dust. So to add a little bit more, actual tangibility to your substrate, we're going to be adding this bark. Bark is going to be great because it holds in a little bit of moisture. It's a little resistant to molding, so you're not going to have to worry about that. And what it's going to do is allow them to have a little bit more of a textured grounding. We're also, for that texture, for the aesthetic of it all, as well as to aid in the ability for it to withhold moisture, what we are going to do is allow them to split up that with a little bit of our sphagnum moss. And sphagnum moss is right here in front of us, and that's going to be perfect for keeping up the humidity. It's going to be perfect for adding a little bit of white coloration into your substrate. So it's not going to just look like a bunch of browns, a little bit of red hue. It's also going to have some white in there. So it's going to be very, very well rounded of a substrate. So having the eco earth, as well as the sphagnum moss, as well as the bark, is going to allow you to create that perfect environment for them. So last but not least, I'm sure you're wondering about the elephant in the room, this big old caulk gun that we have in front of us. This is actually going to be silicone. It's going to be an aquarium grade silicone. Silicone is what we're going to be using to bond the cork to the back of our setup. So this terrarium is going to have a permanent fixture of an animal safe adhesive that is going to allow us to make sure that it stays in place, make sure that it's not going to get jostled around. When it comes to cleaning time, you can easily clean it, specifically with a shop vac, and I'll be showing you guys that in a little bit and how useful that can be. But Particularly, we're going to be using this to adhere everything together, as well as to fill in those gaps using it with this Eco-Earth too. So stay tuned, and I'll show you exactly the first steps in creating the terrarium. Okay guys, can you see me? Can you hear me? Everything great? Excellent. So, the first thing that we're going to need to do is talk about how we're going to organize our cork into being the backdrop. So that's going to involve a little bit of Stratego. It's going to involve a little bit of Tetris. So first things first, it's always great to start with your very first piece. So over here we have our largest piece of cork, and we're going to be positioning this over all the way long way. So I'm going to get most coverage on this end using this. So I'm going to put this right here, and that looks really good. What we're going to be doing with all the rest of this cork is going to be filling in these gaps, ensuring that they're going to have a wonderful backdrop that looks perfectly complete. So first things first, we're going to put that big piece in, and then we're going to start using the bigger pieces to kind of fill in the gaps. So let's go with, say, this one and see where we can really fit this guy. So if we were to make it all fit together, maybe it should go a little bit like this. What do you guys think? Is that a good fit? I like it. I like it a lot. How about we lift this up a little bit and we kind of lay it there. See, now it looks like one big piece. This is going to be great. I love this. All right, excellent. So let's go for our next one. We're on a roll, guys. We're on a roll. Let's start filling in these gaps over here. So let's go with putting this one for here right now, just because it just definitely looks really good here. Yeah, that's going to be perfect there. All right, let me lift this one up a little bit too. There we go. Looking good, looking good. Our Lily is going to absolutely love her new habitat. Oh my goodness gracious, guys, we're doing such a good job already. Okay. See, this is the point of planning. This is why we don't just, put these all together. We haven't gotten any silicone out. We're not making any of this permanent just yet, but we are figuring it out. So that piece definitely is not going there. It looked really good. How about we go for this one? This one's nice and long as well. Oh, that's just a dream. We should have started with this piece, guys. Goodness. All right. Looking nice. So as you can see, we have a little bit of cracks in here still. I mean, it's definitely not perfect. You can see a big old piece right here. I'll show you what to do about those segments in just a little bit. But first of all, we need to make sure that we have enough of this cork, and we need to make sure that we have a beautiful backdrop ahead of time. So ensuring that this is going to work as a setup is going to be perfect. Over here we have a weird piece, all right? This is pretty nice, I like this. Maybe what we can do with this piece is make a little bit of a perch. So what I'll do is I'll take it, have that cool side facing upwards. Right there. See, there's a little bit of a notch right here. I'm gonna fit this piece of wood right here. So this cork is going to be propped up by the rest of the cork. So how about we find some pieces that go into here that leaves a little bit of a room for this piece, so we can wedge this part right here. So all right, guys, and it looks like we have everything laid out exactly how we would want it. It's looking really, really good to me. How's it look to you guys? We have everything fixed out with this perch that we wanted to do. It wasn't necessarily working so well, so what we did was broke a couple of pieces. Totally okay. Very, very natural. So it's all looking really good. So we're gonna continue. The trick is going to be taking all of this out, cleaning it back up, and then putting it back exactly the way that it is now, only piece by piece. So it's gonna be a little tricky, but I think we got this. All right, guys, so let's jump right into it. The first things first. Remember the big guy we were talking about? What we're gonna do is we're gonna lay a bead of the silicone on either end, place it down, and then make sure that that is going to be sealed down nice and tight. So first things first. All right, guys, so now that we have everything all secure, locked down with our silicone, what we're gonna do is go around and fill in all those little cracks that we mentioned before. we're gonna pump a ton of the silicone inside of there to create kind of like a nice window, and that window is going to be perfect for absorbing some of our substrate. So we're going to take some of the substrate from the bin, that Eco Earth that's nice and dry, and we're just going to push that down in there. That way the top is going to be totally covered by a nice organic material, and then everything's going to be held together underneath of that using that silicone. Now that we have all of the cracks filled in and we have everything all set up, what we're going to do is invest a little bit of time in this. We want it to all dry and get nice and solid before we flip it back over and put in the substrate. So let's get working on that substrate for the future, and let's let this have a little bit of time to dry. So we're going to put it over to the side and whip out this substrate. Thank you guys so much for joining us on our part 1 of this terrarium build out for one of our lily white crested geckos. If you guys liked the video or learned anything so far, please hit that like button. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button to stay updated on everything CBReptile.com. And if you guys don't want to miss the next episode and the next stage in building out this perfect terrarium, don't forget to ring that bell icon. Until next time, we'll see you guys at CBReptile.com.